of which we are presenting today is we ask people, what's the main problem facing or affecting most people where you live? And when we ask a question like that, main problem, it requires the respondents to give only one answer. So the fact that nearly half of all our respondents, 48%, said the cost of living is the main problem facing people where they live. Please do not write in your stories, 48% of Kenyans are having difficulties with the cost of living. They probably are all having difficulties with the cost of living. But this was the main one when they had to pick only one. The second most frequently single mention to this question was hunger and drought, 25%. And just to repeat, I'm sorry to be a broken record, that doesn't mean that people suffering from hunger and drought are not also suffering from inflation of the cost of living. It's just that we only gave them a chance to give one answer for a question like this. There still seems to be this echo. The third most frequently mentioned single problem facing people is unemployment. That was at 13%. And then there were some others. What I found personally as a political analyst for TIFA is that, as you will see, I won't read out the figures, when you look at the division on this question between supporters of Kenya Kwanza and supporters of Azimio, in statistical terms, hakuna matofauti. You would think all of these people are certainly living in the same country, and they all have the same economic challenges because the results are nearly identical across the political divide. And when you think about the, I don't want to use the word arguments, if you think about the debate or the contestation that's now taking place between the Kenya Kwanza government and the Azimio opposition, you therefore, even somebody who's just arrived from the moon or somewhere, can understand why so much of this debate is about the economy. Reflected in what Kenyans identify in this survey as the main problems that are affecting them. By the way, if you have a question as we're going along, put your hand up. I'm happy to answer. But don't ask a difficult question that I wouldn't answer. Wouldn't be able to answer. We also, for this question, we showed the distribution of responses of these top three mentions. There were many other mentions besides cost of living, hunger and drought, and joblessness, but we just put them under other because there were so many of them, 1%, 1.5%, 0.5%, and so on. They come to a total of 14%, all these other mentions. Insecurity, problems in the health sector, so on and so forth. We are continuing at TIFA to use, for geographical distributions, the same 9 zones that we came up with a couple of years ago in the period leading up to the election. So that for Central Rift, for Coast, for Lower Eastern, Western, Northern Kenya, Nairobi, the Mount Kenya area, Nyanza, and the South Rift, you can see what those figures are. And I will just give the highlights, which are shown here in the slide in red. The identification of cost of living as the most challenging problem facing people in the area where our respondents live was highest in South Rift, in Western, and in Coast. 62%, 61%, and 58%. Hunger and drought was the most mentioned, or got its most mentions in Northern Kenya and in Lower Eastern, which is basically Ukambani. And if you looked at the recent reports from the Red Cross and from government, Ministry of Health and so on, you've seen, I think, the 27 or 26 out of 47 counties where there is severe famine at the moment, even though the rains have started. And when you look at the 9 zones that TIFA has used, you can see the reality of our data reflecting just what we've been told by government and also relief agencies. Now, some of you might ask, if the government or the Red Cross gives out results for each of the 47 counties, why don't we in TIFA do that also? And the simple reason is, with a sample of only 2,065, if we divided those people up into the 47 counties, most of the counties that have low populations would have so few respondents, the statistical margins of error would be too high.